day to you guys, wherever you're watching around the world. Welcome back to the Backmarkers F1 Show podcast. This is episode 131, and today we'll be recapping all the events happening at the debut, the inaugural 2022 Miami Grand Prix. There was a very interesting weekend indeed in South Florida, and I'm sure that we're got a lot of opinions on this weekend's race. And I'm glad to have a full house here tonight, recording on this Tuesday evening. We got Tyler McDonald, and returning from a couple of weeks away in vacation in India is Shaker Barty. Great to have you guys all along here tonight. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Maybe not as hungover as Max is, but doing well.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm still recovering from my 24 hour of travel, but I'm doing good.
Pretty long flight, eh?
Yeah, 16 hours. So yeah, you can't go straight over the Ukraine right now. So it added an extra 2 hours to my flight. It was supposed to be 14 and ended up being 16. So yeah.
you might be feeling exactly like Max then, but in a different way. Yeah, it's a very, very interesting weekend indeed, and I think a lot of today's podcast will just be discussing kind of the Miami, not so much even the Grand Prix, but just all the festivities and everything, because certainly a lot of people have their opinions about this race weekend, and of course we are going to actually talk about the on-track events because that's what's most important and had a pretty big impact on the championship as well for this weekend. So I guess we can get right into then just talking about this race. And Tyler, I'll begin with you, and I don't even really know where to start for for this weekend, so maybe I'll just give the floor to you and let me know what were your first impressions of the circuit itself, first of all, and then just the rest of the madness that was going on in Miami.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be something out of the ordinary. It's been trying to be mini Monaco in a way. So you knew they're going to have some sort of grand spectacle that they were trying to accomplish. And in Miami, it's a party city. Was definitely expecting to be some sort of party-like vibe involved in it. And I thought they did a really good job. If I was a fan at the track, I would have had a phenomenal time. I mean, you had the yacht club, you had a beach club, you had all the different manufacturers had their own stands and tons of different events to go to. I thought it would be phenomenal to go to as a spectator in Miami. And I think that's going to be one of the driving forces. They know to get people coming back in the United States, you have to have that appeal of wanting to go to an event, having a great time at an event. If you take stuff from NASCAR and the tailgating that happens for NASCAR, it's a whole day event. You have tons of concerts and different activities to do during the day and at night, and so you make a full weekend out of it. And Miami Grand Prix kind of try to do something similar to that, but with maybe a little bit of a European flair to it as well. So I thought from that perspective, they did a phenomenal job. The track, I was cautiously optimistic going into the weekend. I really liked it, honestly. I really thought the track provided some decent overtaking spots, but not too many at the same time. And I like the different sort of areas that your car had to be good at every single thing, had to be good at straight line speed, had to be good in the high speed corners in the first sector. And at the end of the second sector, it had to have a really good chassis with those little chicanes as well. So for the track design, I thought they did a pretty solid job. As for maybe the race wasn't exactly the way I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be more entertaining than what it was, which is unfortunate for the actual viewers not at the race. But I mean, that's one of those things where there's going to be some feeling out process. Obviously, there's a lot of problems with the tarmac at the race, and they're going to have to do some work fixing that for next year. And hopefully that provides a better racing atmosphere as well for the drivers. But all in all, an interesting weekend. And I'll stop rambling as we get into more things. I want to hear Shaker's thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, it overall looked like a very exciting event. I mean, obviously they had a lot of publicity around it. A lot of the drivers going out to a lot of the sports events and a lot of stuff that was going on around Miami the week beforehand to kind of promote the race itself. Um, I mean, I'm not too sure of all the rumors that have come out of the event because obviously it was the first time they put it on, but not having enough water and overcharging for a lot of stuff. I mean, again, just one of those things that are probably rumors that we can't really confirm at the moment. But like I said, first year for Miami putting on a Grand Prix, basically on the other side. the U.S. So it's kind of interesting to see. And I'm sure they're going to be making it, like you said, Tyler, making it better as the years to come, especially safer. Because I know Carlos Sainz mentioned that a lot of the wall that he hit felt like it was a lot of damage and felt like he hurt himself pretty bad. So they're going to be trying to work on some of the walls that they're going to be putting in those spots. And I think Esteban Ocon complained about the same thing as well. But yeah, it's for first year for Miami Grand Prix, the track the track itself looked pretty good. I'm sure they'll make improvements to the areas that we saw difficulties in.
That's a good point, Shaker, that you bring up about that wall, because I don't think they were expecting there to be crashes going into that corner, and with it being such a slow speed spot, I don't think they were expecting the short of shunts that we saw. And I would like to see some sort of Tech Pro barrier. I think there would be the best idea for it, and at least a little, maybe some more tires as well, and you kind of extend that wall a little bit further. But yeah, those are some pretty hard hits into concrete barriers. So it's a good point.
I think that's exactly what Sainz mentioned, having some of the Tech Pro walls set up there too. So yeah, it'd be good for it for sure.
Hey guys, before we get back to the video, we'd just like to announce our new sponsor, NordVPN. Now, if you guys don't know what a VPN is, it's a virtual private network that hides your IP address and protects your identity, especially if you're roaming on public Wi-Fi networks. We use it all the time here at the Backmarkers F1 Show between me, Tyler, and Shaker, especially me when I'm looking for the latest news about F1 from around the world and I can't access it because of my location. With one click, boom, I'm connected either on my Android or PC, and I'm racing through the web, no problem. And you guys that watch F1 will know that you need a good VPN if F1 TV is blocked in your area. So if F1 content is blocked in your area, you can use NordVPN's over 5,400 servers in 60 plus countries to watch the 2022 F1 season. And much like the Ferrari this year, it's the fastest and the most reliable. So check the pinned comment in the video or in the description box to get an exclusive NordVPN deal with us at nordvpn.com/backmarkers. So check out NordVPN, guys. All the info in the description box below. And now let's get back to the video. And just to continue on the subject of the track safety, I believe what the stewards and the organizers were saying is that the Tech Pro wasn't possible because they were pretty much already making that corner so narrow that with the Tech Pro it was going to be even more narrow. At least that was their reasoning, so I don't know if that was true or not, but Esteban Ocon's crash was reportedly 51G impact, which was pretty huge considering, especially like you said, Tyler, at that area of the circuit, they didn't really expect any of those types of crashes, and certainly not at that level, but it was a very, very hard concrete wall, and yeah, both drivers complaining of physical issues afterwards, but I think that for me, piggybacking off what you guys are talking about, if we just stick to the track for the moment, the track was all right for me. It wasn't as good as some of the newer circuits that we've seen. Like, let's take Jeddah, for example, which is a brand new one we can compare it to. The racing at Jeddah isn't great. Obviously, the race is a little bit dangerous, a lot of safety cars, hard to overtake there as well. But what I like about Jeddah is that from a driving perspective, a one-lap perspective, it's a phenomenal circuit to drive. And I think a lot of the drivers really do enjoy that adrenaline rush. Here in Miami, for me, the Autodrome isn't as great over one lap as Jeddah, for example. And that's kind of the problem for me, was that if the circuit isn't really thrilling over one lap, and in the race it's not that great, the circuit kind of falls short a little bit for me, because the high-speed sections are great. Awesome to see that area where the car is going through there. But then when we got into that Mickey Mouse chicane, as Daniel Ricciardo called it, of turn 14, 15, and then even into 16, it was just so slow, especially with these heavy cars this year. But I think even going back to the cars of early 2014, it would have been extremely slow even as well, and almost next to impossible to overtake through there. So the circuit was a little underwhelming for me, but it wasn't bad. I think with a little bit of changes, it can be a solid circuit. Sector 3 a little bit like Sochi, as many people were saying. So yeah, I think that the problem is that when you look at what the drivers were saying about the circuit, a lot of them weren't happy. The tarmac wasn't great. There was a lot of other issues too. I mean, Sergio Perez flat out just came out and said that the tarmac was a joke. So those are things that when you host a Grand Prix for the first time, it's not what you want to hear. Compare it to when they went to Portimao for the first time. Really, really good things that they were saying about it. When we went back to Zandvoort last year, weren't much complaints. So Miami fell short in there. I think that they went a little too much overboard with the hype and not enough focus on the racing.
Yeah, that's a good point, Chris. I mean, you do have to consider the actual tarmac as one of the main spots, and you compare it to the other races. I mean, like you said, Jeddah, brand new tarmac, no complaints there. Portsmouth, we had that issue with the first year with it being almost too slick, but that was fixed for next year as well. So they're going to have to invest in a new surface as well. As we mentioned that Mickey Mouse chicane, I know I'd have to look at the actual course layout to see if this is possible, but I wonder if they could put a little Singapore sling in there to keep it still somewhat high speed, but have that chicane. I love the Singapore sling. I was so upset when they got rid of it. And I'd love to see that chicane back in F1 and somehow you can call it the Miami sling or the Dolphin sling or just call it the Dolphin corner. I don't care. But I think that'd be a phenomenal spot. I don't know if it would actually work logistically. I'd have to actually look at the track, but I think it'd be a really good idea to put in that location.
No doubt, and I think that there will be some changes coming to the circuit for next season. Alonso already said basically to the FIA, look, they got to resurface this for 2023, so that we know will change. Other track alterations we're not sure of, but let's keep the topic on the track for the moment, and then we'll get into a little bit of the race itself, and then probably the rest of this talk will be about some of the more odd things that we saw this weekend in Miami. But keeping on the issue of the racing itself, which was the big question, right? Okay, over one lap, it was a pretty decently exciting track, but the big question mark is obviously the racing. And interestingly enough, the Miami Autodrome had the second highest number of overtakes this season behind the opening race in Bahrain. Now, whether that was aided by the late safety car or not, I'm not exactly sure, but we missed a lot of those overtakes because of the F1 TV direction, and we'll touch on that a little bit later because it ties into this whole, promoting more of the venue itself than the racing. But, I mean, there was some decent amount of action, right? I mean, the race was a little bit boring before we got to that safety car period with Lando and Pierre Gasly having that incident. But we obviously saw some great battles between Verstappen and Sainz on lap 1. Verstappen then taking the lead on Charles Leclerc shortly thereafter and basically running away with the race had it not been for that safety car. So, Tyler, what were your impressions about the race itself, putting aside all the other extracurricular activities? What did you think of the racing around Miami?
I thought it was solid. I know it wasn't ideal, and there could have been more spots for overtaking, but I thought that, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, there was enough overtaking, enough spots for overtaking, and we saw some moves being made. I think it could be improved still. I think there's a lot of spots where they could improve the racing, but at the same time, I think they have the basis of the right idea for the actual layout of the track. I think all the pieces are there. They just have to put the puzzle together to make it, exactly how they would like it to create a very good racing track.
No, I totally agree. I enjoyed the racing there. Enjoyed some of the overtakes that I saw. I like that they made the track wide enough for the overtakes, unlike Jeddah, which is a brand new circuit. And yeah, just like there, there was some good chance for DRS to overtaking. And it seems like a lot of the cars that are obviously faster on the straight, benefited more from this track. But like you guys said, if we make a little bit of those changes, make it faster paced corners, we might see a different kind of race next year. Yeah.
The potential is there. It wasn't the most exciting race. It wasn't the most boring race. It was kind of in the middle or so. But, just let's touch on the drivers here, which really should have been the stars of the show this weekend. But Max Verstappen, man, I mean, we can't really say enough positive things about this driver because reigning world champion has won every single race that he's finished in 2022. And I think this is, again, what I was really disappointed about this weekend. I know people were excited about the new venue, but the championship really took a back seat this weekend because this was a critical race here going into race 5 after the events of Imola in this championship, because look at the performance Max Verstappen put on. Barely any running on Friday, so many issues for Red Bull. It was looking like, oh, here we go again. The reliability, the RB18 is quick, but it's not reliable. And with barely any running, man, Max just made a mistake in qualifying, but then came out in the race and really essentially just dominated the Ferraris. I did not expect to see the gap so large there. I know the straight line speed advantage is great, but he just drove such a fantastic race, handled the safety car restart brilliantly. Leclerc really never had a chance, even though Leclerc drove a really, really solid weekend. But This is so interesting now in the championship. 19 points gap now as we go into some of the more European races like Monaco and Spain. But just a phenomenal performance from both championship contenders. I thought that was, especially from Verstappen, really, really impressive weekend.
It really was. It showed, why he's a champion in this sport. I mean, the drive was phenomenal after basically no practice on a circuit that he's never been at. It was really, really impressive to see him. He was bold on turn one, made the move, got by Carlos Sainz. And I thought Carlos maybe wasn't aggressive enough there. I know you don't want to make contact with Max, but he really seemed that that Max kind of was more aggressive with him, and he kind of let Max go. I mean, I'm not in the driver's seat, nor am I a driver, so that could be not even true at all. But that's just how it seemed on TV. But then the overtake on Charles was well done by Max, well timed. I think that the only thing that's going to stop Max now from winning this title is Red Bull's reliability. That's going to be the big thing. And now it's saying that Spain, I would favor the Ferraris. Monaco, I would favor the Ferraris as well. So it's going to be interesting to see where the point gap lays out after those two races. But just a phenomenal drive by Max Verstappen. Like you said, that incredible record this year of every race he finishes, he's winning. So that's a big kind of eye opener in this championship.
Yeah, and I think you said it best. That's a championship winning drive. That's one of those drives that Lewis Hamilton would do, and we'd be like, holy shit, where did he come out from to get that win? But yeah, I was mentioned this right before we got on the podcast, but I was talking to my buddies and like, oh, it seems like a Ferrari winning kind of weekend this year, weekend for Ferrari, and I'm like, I'm not too sure, man. Like, it didn't seem like he put in a really fast time in qualifying. If you can hold it together throughout the entire race, Red Bull might have a chance. But yeah, very well done drive from Max, and felt really bad for Perez at the end. He could have had that move and gotten that third place for Red Bull as well.
Yeah, unfortunate there for Checo. Had some engine sensor issues, almost had to retire actually. So thankfully, he was able to finish fourth. Might have been able to get on the podium without them, but he's still kind of in the championship mix as well. You never know with the reliability concerns of his car, but Max's as well, and what happens with Leclerc too. So very interesting point in the season we're at now, because next race is obviously Barcelona. Big upgrades are expected for the majority of these teams. Ferrari is going to bring some upgrades. Red Bull, I'm sure, is going to bring something. So it all depends on whether those upgrades are going to correlate correctly for the teams and if they're going to be able to improve their pace or if they're maybe going to go the other way. So yeah, very, very interesting weekend from the on-track action, I think, from our championship leaders. Further down the field, one driver I really wanted to mention, and I think deserved driver of the day. I know Verstappen had a very fantastic race, but Esteban Ocon, I really thought that had a very, very great recovery. As we mentioned off the top of the podcast, had the 51G impact, was sore, wasn't even able to participate in qualifying, started from the very back of the grid, ended up in P8. You wouldn't have seen him on the F1 TV feed because they were too busy showing the yacht club, but a phenomenal recovery from Ocon.
Yeah, it was a great, great drive from the Frenchman. I mean, really put his head down, and that Alpine car looked at home on the Miami track. And even Alonso raced pretty well, I thought, even though he had that
at times
5-second penalty. But other than that, I thought he actually had a good race as well. So no, phenomenal by Esteban, and hopefully he can continue this sort of momentum that he has this season. I feel like he's really coming out and battling Alonso for that number one driver role for Alpine. It's an interesting little kind of change of the tides. I don't know, handing off almost maybe, but I've been impressed with Ocon this year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Esteban Ocon has been definitely changed my point of view since last year. He's really impressed me. Just correct me if I'm wrong. Are Renault the only ones running a Renault, or Alpine the only ones running a Renault engine?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, their engine looks really good. Surprising. I know coming out from what we said in testing, but their car looks really good this year. And yeah, if he keeps putting in those drives, he's gonna be getting those constructor points from for Alpine all the way through. I know they only have 26 at the moment in sixth place, but not doing too bad.
And you have the standings up there. I think Alonso was in 16th, if I'm not mistaken, in the driver standings.
Yeah, he's 16th with 2, and then Albon ahead with 3. You know, it's all pretty close after 12th place, all within like 2 or 3 points.
Yeah, Alonso's really had some of the more bad luck of this season, only scoring those 2 points. He's had some phenomenal drives, has had some mistakes too. Like in Miami, I think some were just a little bit overly aggressive on his end. But I mean, Alpine would probably be in a much better situation if Alonso didn't have all that unfortunate luck and reliability issues. But you mentioned the driver there, Shaker, Alex Albon. Another fantastic performance for Williams. And they got the strategy right once again. Things went their way. And I believe that he got bumped up into P9 after all the penalties shuffled through. And so grabbed 2 points for Williams. I know it's not much, but Williams looking like they're having another struggle in 2022. Nicky Latifi still plenty off the mark at the moment, but Alex Albon carrying the torch on his own and was having some pretty good battles with the likes of the Mercedes in the midfield. So he's kind of like putting himself right place at the right time. Those points count.
Yeah, I will say they got the strategy right on one side of the garage.
One
and
side,
it seems
yeah.
like it's been that way the whole year. They've gone it. I'm defending Nicky Latifi here because I think he's got robbed a few times here on bad strategies. And it's been really unfortunate for Nicky. Not to discredit Albon, he's been phenomenal this year. He also had an upgraded car compared to Nicky, who didn't have an upgraded car. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Now, of course, Nicky needs to perform on the racetrack himself. But I mean, I think Latifi's had a tough go at bad luck this year, and Albon's had a go at some pretty good luck as well. Speaking of bad luck too, Shaker, before I want to get you to talk about this too, but I think the Aston Martins got absolutely robbed this weekend. I feel very bad for Lance Stroll and Sebastian Vettel because it looked like they were going to have a double points finish at one point, and their car actually looked half decent. I don't know if they brought any upgrades, but it looked pretty good at Miami. And starting from the pit lane, strategy goes right their way, and midway through the race, near the end of the race, they're both looking like they're going to score points, and then Stroll gets taken out and Vettel gets taken out, and all of a sudden there goes all those points. So unfortunate for Aston Martin as well. I want to touch on that before you chimed in, Shaker.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you. They definitely got robbed, but I think from what all the Mercedes works teams for all the Mercedes engine team, they all look really good. This fifth race, even what do you call it? Even McLaren look really good this weekend. I really want to touch on Valtteri Bottas because he has been phenomenal this season for Alfa Romeo, coming out with 7th in all these finishes that he's had in all his other races. And he was holding up to both the Mercedes if he didn't get into that bad little slide to almost go into the barriers, but he held it together. But I think he was my driver of the day for sure.
And great recovery for him too after the incident in, I think it was practice or qualifying. I don't even remember now, but he's been phenomenal this season, and he loves his life at Alfa Romeo now. I think he's really enjoying the vibe at that team, and it's working really well for him. And and I think that looking at it from a perspective from Alfa Romeo too, it's just working really well with the rookie partnership with Zhou Guanyu. He's going to have some little bit of catching up to do, obviously, to Bottas, but I think he's had some bad luck at times this season, but kind of rookie pains as well. So we'll see where it ends up. Another driver I did want to mention, just because you were touching on that, Tyler, agree with you on the Aston Martin perspective, and just kind of unfortunate with what happened with the Vettel and Schumacher incident. And young Mick, he's in his second year in Formula One now. He's going to have to start stepping it up a little bit here because he's been quite a few steps behind Kevin Magnussen. He's been kind of making a little bit of clumsy mistakes every now and then, which is kind of has put him in positions unable to score points, has kind of fell back again this weekend, which is a little bit strange because I think that they would have been able to at least get one driver into the points. But I think that Mick Schumacher, it's at the time now where, okay, last year we were able to forgive with some of these mistakes, but he's got to step it up now because he's got Kevin Magnussen alongside him, and he's not going to give him any sort of breaks, and he's really going to have to be a much, much better driver because he's got an excellent teammate in comparison to him.
Yeah, and I think Big Brother Seb or Uncle Seb, however you want to call it, we'll have a good talking to him about that incident that, of course, took Sebastian Vettel out of the race. I think it's a good learning moment maybe for Mick, and I'm sure Vettel will go with that approach when talking to him. Obviously, he was upset, but I think I think it was Crofty who said it on the broadcast. There's no friendships on the track and everything like that. It's hard to have a friendship in F1, which is true. But at the same time, I think it'll be a good learning moment from veteran to young driver who is learning the ropes as well. But you're right. He needs to step up. It looks like he was this weekend. He had been ahead of Magnussen all throughout the race and out-qualified him and looked really good. But again, that one mistake cost him what could have been, I think, 1 point. Because Albon, I think, was at 12th, and then there was that incident. There was another incident as well, where Albon moved all the way up. Anyways, but he was close to getting his first ever Formula One point.
Very unfortunate for Mick and Sebastian Vettel. I totally agree. There's another touch. Was it Nicholas Latifi that went into the fight with Lance Stroll and Kevin Magnussen? Or was that Albon? I know he made up one spot and then he ended up losing out 2 spots in the end.
I don't remember.
Yeah, me neither.
Whoever it was, I didn't think it was the greatest move at the time. Just in that part of the track to do, we should have just waited it out a little bit. I think it was Nicholas Latifi.
We might not even seen it on the world feed. I haven't seen the onboards yet, so
yeah, I haven't watched the onboards either. I'm not sure.
Well, let's see.
Let us know in the chat.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I think that kind of basically covers the events of the Miami Grand Prix and talking about the incidents and the drivers. Like I said, not the most eventful race out there, but a half-decent start to Formula One's life in Miami. And we can kind of finish the podcast just talking a little bit about some of the more odd moments of the weekend. And really, I'm just going to put my 2 cents into it because I touched on this in the video I put out on Monday. It was, I think it's difficult for our perspective because we can't speak for everybody. I think you guys will agree with me on this, is that we're Formula One racing fans. I mean, personally, I don't really care for any of the celebrities or the pageantry or any of all that stuff. I just care about the racing. I would much rather see this Grand Prix go to Barber Motorsports Park or Watkins Glen or Indianapolis and do the race there. It would be 100 times better. But we know Liberty Media, American owned, it's about the money and it's about the glam and all that type of stuff. But I don't know. It was just such an odd weekend for me just looking at it because it just didn't even really feel like it was an F1 race. It was almost like it took the back seat to all the other stuff that was out there. It was just odd. There's so many odd things. The police escort,
that was the weirdest.
That was so. I'm watching this afterwards. I'm like, where are they going? And then they're coming out in football helmets, but they didn't strap them up, so they're just. Yeah, I'll let you guys have the floor. I'm just gonna say, very, very odd weekend.
I actually really like the football helmets.
It wasn't even the worst part, though.
No, I actually really like the football helmets. I thought that was a fun little idea on the classic hat. The police escort was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, come on. What do we need here? Christian Horner is trying not to get run over by these police vehicles, and they had a delay. I mean, it took them 50 minutes to get to the podium and everything like that. It was just, and I think it was only Max on that because Charles and Carlos were there early. I don't know. It was really, really odd. That was probably the oddest part of the weekend for me. Martin Brundle mistaking Patrick Mahomes for one of the basketball player. That was just too funny. I mean, that's a meme right now. It was odd. It was very odd for little things like that. I think overdoing it a little bit. And of course, like I said at the start of the podcast, they're trying to make it a mini Monaco or the US Monaco or anything like that. But, it's just, there's ways of doing that without going overboard like we saw. And there's some ideas that I love. I love the yacht club and I love the beach club idea. That stuff's great. I think that fan experience inside the racetrack is really, really important. But that whole overdoing it for the TV part of things with the police escort and everything, I wasn't a big fan of that. And I don't know who they picked. Danica Patrick was phenomenal in qualifying. She's, of course, a US-based female racing driver who was in IndyCar and in NASCAR and had made a pretty good career for herself. And she has, understands what these cars are. I was hoping she was going to do the post-race interview. I don't know who that was for the post-race interview, but Carlos Sainz's reaction, I don't know if you saw it. Carlos Sainz kind of did one like, what the heck after his questions, because they were terrible, terrible questions. I think he was a boxer. I don't know exactly.
Was it the black dude?
Yes.
Oh, that was Willie T. Ribs.
I have no idea who that is.
I think he like. I don't think he raced in Formula One, but he was like an American racing driver. I think he did IndyCar like way, way, way back in the day.
Oh, did he? Oh, I didn't know. I'll have to look up and do some research on him and actually know who he is. But I didn't think his questions were that great.
I know what you mean though. Yeah.
I thought Danica should have been there as well. Anyways, I'm rambling again. Shakers, take the floor before I start saying crazy things.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I thought it was like a little bit over the top for what they were trying to do for Miami, but I understand where they're coming from. I agree. Like, prioritize the racing part of it. You know, like, I don't give a shit about the yacht shots in the actual race. I care about seeing the race and, you know, seeing all the other drivers that we don't usually see. They just like kept on cutting to the shots of the track and then going back to Max and, you know, the top 5 drivers, and we missed out a lot on what was actually happening in the race, which I feel like is more important. Like, yeah, sure, the fan experience part of it is cool and all, but, you know, a lot of the people that are watching the race and tuning in around the world, they outweigh the amount of people outnumber the amount of people that are there. I don't know. I like one of my friends, my friend's sister, went to the race and like they had a great time, but I don't know.
I could only imagine what the reaction was TV wise in Europe, who's not used to this sort of like overdoing an American thing. At least us here in Canada, we see that with this, you know, with the NFL and then like just overdoing it constantly with all these things. In Europe, it's not so much. You don't see that as much, I guess. So I would love to hear what their reaction was to all this.
Yeah, so I think that will then do it for the debut of the Miami Grand Prix. Certainly a lot of things to talk about following this race, and of course we're going to have to get used to these types of events because we've got Las Vegas in 2023. So if Miami was crazy and if you didn't like it, you're probably going to hate Las Vegas next season, but it is what it is. And let's just say I'm actually going to be looking forward to the Spanish Grand Prix for the first time in maybe a little while. So yeah, definitely let us know in the comments below what you thought of the Miami Grand Prix, the racing itself, the venue. If you happen to go to the race, especially, let us know in the comments what the experience was like. As Shaker, you were talking about your friend there, so that's always helpful for us just watching at home. So I'll leave any final thoughts to you guys before we wrap up here.
Yeah, these new 2022 cars now have the challenge of making the Spanish Grand Prix interesting. So we'll see if they can live up to that challenge or not. That's going to be a fun one to see how they go around in Spain. But other than that, that's it for me. Like you said, it's going to be an interesting time when Las Vegas happens next year, but that's for next year to worry about. Let's get back to this quick European leg and then a home Grand Prix for us.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see possible overtaking at Spain. So yeah, I agree. Let's have a Canadian Grand Prix after like 3 years.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Yeah, that'll be coming up very shortly here in June. So looking forward to that, and of course, looking forward to bringing you guys more podcasts and videos in these next couple of weeks. Thank you very much to everybody who supported us in the last little bit. Of course, all the numbers are great. It's nice to see so many new people as well subscribing to the channel, and of course, it's been nice for us, provided us more opportunities with sponsors and things like that. So thank you to the sponsors of our videos. Thank you to you guys as well. And of course, make sure you continue to support our work. You can do so by just subscribing to the channel. And if you want to take it a little bit further, you can join the community tab, you can join our community on YouTube by clicking the join, and you can buy a membership there for us, or you can just donate directly at Buy Me a Coffee. You can find all that info in the description box down below. And of course, we're there on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, reachable by email as well. If you want to ask us any questions or recommend any future content, we're always open to suggestions. So for Tyler McDonald, Shaker Barty, I've been Chris Cato for this episode. Thank you guys very much for listening or watching, and we'll be with you again soon. Take care.